We begin today on Capitol Hill, where emotions ran high during the latest congressional committee hearing over the Flint water crisis. This is now the third congressional hearing over the case of lead water contamination in Flint, Michigan. Members of Congress today listened to high-profile testimonies from both Gina McCarthy, head of the Environmental Protection Agency, and Rick Snyder, governor of the state of Michigan. Joining me now live from the Capitol is RT correspondent Manuel Rapalo with the details. Manny, this is the third hearing now in Flint, as I said. Is this committee making any new findings?
Well, unfortunately, Anya, we're seeing the same sort of finger pointing that we witnessed over the course of the last couple of hearings. You know, despite the fact that this is a case where members of Congress are looking to find accountability for what is without a doubt a tragedy, there's a tremendous amount of partisanship that took place at this hearing earlier today. Republicans on the committee almost tunnel vision in their attempt to shift the bulk of the blame over to the EPA. At one point, Florida Congressman John Mika called on Gina McCarthy, who's the head of the EPA, to be fired. And then on the other hand, you have committee Democrats who are, for example, Elijah Cummings, he's the ranking member who's defending the EPA, saying that the bulk of the blame should fall on the state of Michigan, specifically pointing to the office of Michigan Governor Rick Snyder. I want to play you that short clip from that exchange. Take a listen.
Governor Snyder has been described as running the state of Michigan like a business. Well, what if this was a business? What if a CEO ran a company that sold toys laced with lead that children put in their mouths? What if those children were poisoned as a result? There's no doubt in my mind that if a corporate CEO did what Governor Snyder's administration has done, he would be hauled up on criminal charges.
Now, to be fair here, Anya, Governor Snyder did say himself that he shares in the blame here. I want to play you what he said in response to those comments. Take a listen.
We've uncovered systematic failures at the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. The fact is, bureaucrats created a culture that valued technical competence over common sense. And the result was lead was leaching into the residents' water. We're taking responsibility in Michigan, and we're taking action. And that's absolutely essential here in Washington, too. Inefficient, ineffective, and unaccountable bureaucrats at the EPA allowed this disaster to continue unnecessarily.
So, Anya, as you can see, is still a lot of finger pointing going on. It really seems as though it's going to be a long time before we know what the final outcome will be in the case of the Flint water contamination. Anya?
That testimony from Governor Snyder was highly anticipated. There was a higher than usual attendance at this hearing today, including many people from Flint. What has their reaction been to these hearings?
That's right, Anya. There was actually buses full of people from Flint, residents of Flint, family members that were victims of that contaminated water. You know, the one thing that's been a constant at these hearings, throughout the course of all of these hearings, is the high tensions, the emotion, and at times even outrage from people in attendance over the testimony that they're hearing. A lot of frustration over how long it really has taken for any action to be done in regard to this water contamination. But there's also a lot of hope from the folks that we've talked to here today that these hearings will lay a foundation for the much needed change in the community of Flint. We have to remember that aside from this water contamination crisis, Flint is a community that's plagued with high levels of poverty, high levels of unemployment. Flint isn't unique in that regard in the United States, but it is a community that's very much in need. Anya?
Manny, I understand that aside from work being done in Michigan, there is legislation being introduced related to the crisis in Flint nationally. What can you tell us about this?
Yes, there is legislation being introduced by 31 members of Congress. It's called the Emergency Financial Manager Reform Act of 2016. Now, this is a bill being introduced that basically takes the lessons learned from Flint and applies it to other situations, other communities and cities across the United States that could be faced with a similar crisis. Now, earlier today, after that hearing, I caught up with Michigan Congressman John Conyers. He's one of the members that's introducing this legislation, to talk to him about just that. Take a listen.
This is still getting out to the nation. There are communities other than Flint that are in this same precarious situation. So we don't want to act like we've just done this one where tragedy has struck already. There is lead and other contaminants in our water supplies that are now being examined for the very first time.
So as you can see, Anya, a very busy day here on Capitol Hill, but if there is one silver lining from all of this is that the issue of water safety is finally being looked at a national level in a greater way. Anya?
Because we know this is a problem not just limited to Flint. RT correspondent Manuel Rapalo, great reporting from Capitol Hill.